I personally share a lot about like the same values as my parents, and I think that the values like honesty and kindness have definitely shaped my life. As I always tell the truth in a way that I've been programmed to realize that it's always better to tell the truth than tell a white lie because that can always just lead to trouble. And also just like the kindness that you have towards others is really important because that just kindness makes the world.
Say the biggest thing my mother taught me was that everything happens for a reason. And a lot of people don't believe that. Um, a lot of things in life just happen and you don't really know why and there isn't really an explanation. But as you go along in life, you realize that's something that really helped you decide and create your path for later in life. So going with that, like, value and, like, ideology of, you know, understanding that things are going to happen, things aren't going to, like, play out the way you really wanted every time, but that you can learn and grow from it. I really took a lot from that, and it really taught me to not take anything for granted because I just assume everything's gonna go one way. It just completely changes last minute, and it's totally it's not in the way you ever expect. But there's always something good that comes up.
Um, well, my mom always taught me to, I guess, be a good person and work hard. I've had a job since I was like 13, so um, I guess working hard and doing the right thing has always been important to me. From my
One of the values that I often think about when I think about the values that my mom instilled in me is being able to be independent because she did a lot on her own. I watched her raise me as a single mom, and I watched her go to school, and I watched her go to work. And she always told me that it's really important to take care of other people, but in order to be able to take care of other people, we have to be able to take care of ourselves first. So I think that's really shaped me as a person because in my career path, I want to work with kids, I want to work with underprivileged populations, and I want to be able to support those people. But in order to support those people, I need to do things like finish my education and make sure I have enough money so that I can sustain myself so that I can then help others.
Shaped who I am in a lot of ways. I know one of the values in my house was education. We were always told the Quinns are held to a higher standard. That was like our family motto. And so we were very much pushed education-wise, which really helped me out. I mean, graduated a year early from college with honors. I'm in grad school. And so definitely my values were instilled from a young age from all of my family. Service is also another value we have. We used to do family community service days, and we get together and go volunteer at the local church or whatever we need to do. What else? I guess communication is a big value in our family. We sat down and had dinner together every day. We still do. I go home every day and have dinner with my family when I'm not in class. So it's definitely something that we care a lot about and we keep up, even though, like my sister moved to North Carolina and we Skype her like every other day, and we all sit down as a family and have like our family conversations that we miss out with because she's not here. So I definitely think those values shape who you are and like who you.
I listen. That's like my big thing. I listen to what people have to say. Um, I might not agree with what they have to say, but I don't let that affect a relationship that I'm going to have with them. I'm going to be respectful of what they believe. I'm going to be aware that they believe this, but like I don't. And like I just try to go about it like I don't let it affect me or the relationship I'm going to have with that person. I try to be open-minded. So like I try to establish like relationship with like many different people. So like I know like I'm culturally aware of like different things that people believe in and what they follow and stuff like that. So I think that's a big thing for me.
From time to time you meet jerks and stuff. Like I guess when I'm at work, I worked at Taco Bell, so sometimes you meet really jerky customers, but you deal with it, and I just put on a smile and.
Professional life? Ooh. Yeah, I would say that happens a lot, but for little things, I would say that Most of the jobs or most of the professional situations I've been in, I took those situations or I took those jobs because we all, my employer, the people I work with, all had the same core values. So overall, we all were looking for the same goal. We're looking to get to the same place. But it was the little things getting to that goal, meeting that goal, that really created the conflict. So if it was little things like trying to figure out how to do a program properly, how to help a client properly. We all wanted to help. We all wanted to make things perfect for our situation, but we all thought differently. I would say it's just the little things that don't match up, and that's okay because everyone's going to have a different opinion because everyone comes with different experiences. And that's awesome. If everyone's on the same page, that everyone's like using groupthink, you're not going to get anywhere. You're not going to solve anything because just because your group thinks one way doesn't mean another group doesn't think something else, and doesn't mean your solution's the best. It's just that no one is creative enough to think of something different. So I always appreciate confrontation.
That's definitely happened to me quite a bit. I am in school for speech pathology, so it's all about communication, and we very much learn about like different points of view and cultural differences and such. But it sometimes can get in the way. Like for instance, I work for BOCES, I'm a paraprofessional, and I had one student who had autism and very much had more abilities than other people would notice. They kind of let him just sit there and not do anything, and then I became his aide and definitely made him do things. And his parents didn't agree with that, saying that, he is struggling and he shouldn't have to be forced to do work and he shouldn't, but he wasn't growing as a person and he was very capable of doing those things. And that was definitely a struggle because, of course, the parents were telling me that, and then the classroom teachers telling me something different and saying you should push him and he should be learning and fulfill his potential. So we kind of had to walk that line, and ultimately we left it up to him and saw what he wanted to do because he was capable of making that decision. And normally he was fine with being pushed, and sometimes he did not want that, and that was totally fine. But definitely different points of view is important to understand everyone's perspective and to know kind of where they're coming from. I mean, you can listen to what someone's saying and say, I think this is right, but looking on their background and where they are from definitely tells you kind of their perspective.
So when I was student teaching, my teachers were all wonderful, but there were times that I would hear a teacher in a school say, or even just like observing in classrooms, a lot of things that I heard, especially with the younger kids, is sit like a lady, be a lady. And that really bothers me because I have a hard time with gender stereotypes and what does being a lady really mean. And I think that kids should be able to act the way they want to be able to not misbehave, but that a female student shouldn't have to be held to a different standard than a male student. I think that everybody should be on an equal playing field, and that's something I feel really strongly about and want to instill in my classroom. So when I hear things like sit like a lady, act like a lady, or be a gentleman, I think that we should really be focusing more on be a good person. So in a situation where I was the observer, I wasn't really comfortable actively doing anything about it in that setting because I was there to observe and learn, but it is definitely something that I made note of so that I can actively try to present those situations differently when I have my classroom in the future. This is something I've actually been talking about a lot recently. I just got done with a service trip and we went to the border of El Paso and Juarez in Mexico, and that's a really hot topic in our country right now. What's going on at the border? What should we be doing with migrants and immigrants? Should we deport them? Should we be supporting them? And everybody has really strong views on that. And one of the things that we were talking about was how to present what we had learned to people who have different views than us, because I think that if you come at it with like a superior viewpoint or thinking that you know everything or coming at it really aggressively and not participating in dialogue, then everything that you've learned and hold to be true is just become invalidated. So I think that it's really important to engage in dialogue and to try to see other people's perspectives. And even if you can't agree with them, understand that everybody has a reason for feeling the way they do and coming from the place that they come from, because people have different home lives and people have different educational experiences. And at the end of the day, I think people want what's best for themselves and the people who are closest to them. And that's going to vary from person to person. So just understanding that even if we have opposing viewpoints, thinking the best, looking for the best in people and trying to understand that most people are coming from a good place.
I like listening to people talk. I like listening to people tell me their stories. I like what they have to say. So, and I just go off from that. Like, I don't judge them. I don't do anything. I just like follow. I'm like, oh, they could tell me like something cool about like, you know, their religion. I'm like, oh, that's really cool. Like, it's very interesting. Like, I've never heard it before. So my thing is just listening and not like bringing people down because of their beliefs or stuff like that.
I tend to be a very open and empathetic person, so I definitely try my absolute hardest to see where they're coming from. Even if I don't necessarily agree with their perspective, I definitely want to hear it and want an explanation behind it. That's big. Like, I'm not a fan of ignorance. Yeah, like there's some people who just say like, I believe in this because this is the way it is, and have no basis for that. And so then I try to involve education and alter their perspective a little bit. But everyone is entitled to their own perspective, and you have to respect that. And it's not up to you to change everyone's opinions and thoughts and actions. You know, you listen and you respect, you educate where necessary, and maybe you can help change their perspective or give them a new light. And not always. I know many people who will not change their opinion whatsoever. But I just think it's important, like, to have respect there and communication and figure it out rather than just kind of like ending the conversation, because that is what gets people in trouble, like our current political status sometimes.
Definitely since coming to college, I've realized that for me, it's really important to spend time with people who share my values. And so I've kind of formed friendships and relationships with people that share those values, and people whose core values differ from mine, I kind of tend to just have like acquaintance type relationships with and not really that close friendship, just because I think that your core values really say a lot about who you are, and I like to spend time with people who share my core values.
I would say one of the things I really love to do in my free time is to talk to people. Not in the way of like I'm really a social butterfly, but if I find out you have something different from me, you lived a different life, you traveled somewhere, you know, tried different food, or like really simple things, I always want to ask about it. I really want to know, and I never try to offend anybody when asking questions, and I hope I never do, but I just love asking questions and just knowing things about people and their experiences, because that's just one way out of 1,000 to just really get to know people and get to know cultures and groups that you may not be a part of or you may be different from. So in my free time and like in my outside life, I just really appreciate meeting up with people and overhearing people talking to their friends and kind of intervening and being like, hey, I went through that, I experienced this. What do you think about that? And I'm probably just really annoying to people when I ask, but I'm always interested to know. And if they're nice enough to answer, then that's like the highlight of my day, probably the highlight of my week, honestly. Just getting that, you know, interaction and getting that, you know, new knowledge. And the people who can challenge you are the best. Like the people who you think something, but they think completely different, and they like anger you in a way. You talk to them in a mature and responsible way. You know, ask solid, intelligent questions. You can find out a lot about people and a lot about the world.